Thank you for listening to another episode of The Future of Data Security. Today, we're lucky to have André Boucher, CISO at the National Bank of Canada. André, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Jean, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And we've been talking about this interview for a while. You are CISO at National Bank, soon to be CTO, starting in January.
Absolutely. It's a great honor to have the trust of the company. National Bank is a very dynamic organization, so happy to do another transformation.
Very exciting. You have a rich background in the Canadian Forces, NORAD, the Canadian Security Establishment, and I was really curious about that transition from this militaristic intelligence world into the world of financial services and National Bank. What can you tell us about your background and how that transition happened?
I see my career as having really three big parts. I was a technology officer for the first third of my career. Technology officer means understanding the technical environment and being able to communicate it, to shape it, to be an actor in that space. Then my middle third career was really about people, leadership, increasingly larger organizations, leadership of larger teams in different contexts. And I was still in the military, so different national contexts, international contexts, seeing the strength of working with allies and the challenges of working with allies. I think this prepared me well for the third chapter. In about 20 years ago, I became the commanding officer of the cyber forces, the Canadian Forces Cyber Forces, which was called something else. And it was for me the realization that this was the junction of technology and humans. And I fell in love with the idea of being a cyber person. And made it my career focus. So the next 20 years is me making coherent decisions about my future to be a leader in technology, in cybersecurity. And when came time to leave the military, I did this in national security at the government of Canada. Did that for a few years, helped create the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity. And from there was a natural path for me to go to private sector, and where the Cyber Center was trying to help private sector to be at the receiving end of that conversation, which brought me to National Bank.
So it's almost like you were part of a transition in both the CST with its vision to do more outreach with industry and ultimately yourself being cast in a key role.
I'm really eating my own pudding, but it creates this relationship where you can actually provide feedback on what and how we could actually work better together. Because we all know that cybersecurity is something that you do hand in hand, not once against the other.
And as you went through that transition, was it actually coming from one side of the equation, intelligence, security, cyber command type of affair to the private sector? Was it hand on heart how you thought it was going to be?
I certainly had no idea of the complexity of private sector. There's a naive perspective when you're in government, at least I had a naive perspective in government maybe, of how private sector is all about the bottom line, quick decision-making. We understand what we have precisely and we can make investments over investments because it's sharp, it's quick. But I joined a bank. A bank is tens of thousands of employees. It has governance. It has regulatory requirements. It's a fairly complex environment. And I quickly realized that it was perhaps my knowledge in governance that would be, and of course, threat actors and the whole threat landscape. But my most important two muscles, probably strategy and governance, became the key differentiators in that space.
And talking about that, would you say these were, the top lessons or skills that you brought from your military career to the private sector?
And it was by accident. It wasn't by design. I didn't know when I left the public sector that the private sector would be looking for this kind of knowledge and experience. But as you enter the dynamics of the private sector, you realize the relationship to strategy, the window of strategy is different. We're talking 5 years, 10 years, 2 years, 1 year. Is it really still a strategy? So these conversations and they're different from business to business, I believe. Size matters, regulatory environment matters. So being able to navigate in that, if I go all the way back to my military career, working in NATO, where you have a consensus-based organization, versus NORAD, where two partners actually work together to a very clear mandate and mission, totally different governance dynamics. Those are good learnings that can reapply later in private sector.
And what would you say in that transition were the biggest differences and perhaps the most surprising?
The accountability that or the freedom that I get to have as a decision maker in the organization. There's a lot of trust given in the position. of Chief Information Security Officer. I am absolutely responsible and accountable for the strategy and its execution. And those words sound pretty simple to enunciate, but when you're trying to move 31,000 employees in their own behavior in cybersecurity, suddenly the execution of your strategy takes a whole new dimension.
Absolutely. And from the bank's perspective, then, what do you think is the strength that you brought to the table that was most surprising to them?
Perhaps the fact that I understand the other side of the conversation, the public sector side of the conversation. We spend a fair amount of time talking to regulators in multiple jurisdictions, in Canada and elsewhere. So that ability to see both sides and perhaps have a stronger conversation and be able to start from a point of closer to understanding. It's never perfect. I think that this was something that perhaps wasn't expected at the bank itself. And I think it's become a strength, and it's helped us build. The financial sector works in the concept of 3 lines of defense. The actors, the first line of risk with a risk focus, and your internal audit, the third line. Being able to have a conversation with your external viewers, your regulatory, and make these 3 lines of defense speak a common language to this external body is quite important.
And maybe double clicking on that point a little bit, do you have a lot of communications with the communication security establishment, other partners? Which are the ones you work most closely with?
The communication security establishment's baby organization, the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, is a key. I still believe it's a key organization in our ecosystem. But their mandate, of course, is all infrastructures in Canada, not only the financial sector. So we don't speak a lot about other bodies, but the Bank of Canada and the Canadian Financial Sector Resiliency Group under Bank of Canada, which is a partnership that is done with private sector, is quite important and probably my second most important organization when it comes to managing the bigger IT and cyber risks.
Now, switching gear to talk about data security and the future of data security, I'm really interested to learn what are the hardest data security risks, data privacy risks that you contend with, and how's the landscape evolving?
Data security and data protection is a big topic. It's one that we talk about very regularly, very often. It is not one where we have a lot of ecosystem maturity. We approach it in different ways. In the recent years, we've had a lot of conversations about privacy. Privacy is one aspect of data security in a subset of data, the private identifiers and key information. Super important, but I think those were the baby steps to understanding the landscape of data and data protection, data discovery, data classification, and all the aspects of data management that are crucial for the overall ecosystem of data management. I think as an ecosystem, not only the financial sector, but all large and medium enterprises, that is still a significant challenge because we don't have a common taxonomy, a common way of talking about it, a common way of structuring it. We go back to reference model, to the NIST model, to other models, similar models, and we look for these common behaviors, but it is probably still in its infancy as far as domain of security.
And how do you balance the need for innovation, momentum, and the AI supercycle we're in with risk management and different frameworks and demands like USFI, DORA?
Yeah, great complex question. I'll try to tackle it in a couple of ways. So it obviously touches to data and data protection. Data protection, data is my new oil, right? It's my source of value. AI is, to the risk of being a bit controversial, it's just another technology innovation leap forward. Now, it's significant. I'm not underestimating how significant it is. But when you take a longer term view of the last 30 years, we've been through these major transformations. So I'm choosing to look at AI that way. So I have my data and I need to protect my data. I have this new tool. What does the tool bring that's different from what I had before its arrival? Speed, mass movements. It's more autonomous than any tools. It's not a macro. It's more autonomous than any tools we've had before. So you got to understand what this tool does that's different and see what the impact is on your security posture for your data. AI brings more of what we've tackled in the past, but at a different speed, it's an order of magnitude different than what we had before. So we have to react at the same speed. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't speak of there's the threat aspect of that, but there's the opportunity aspect of that as well. So we have to understand both sides, find the right balance, and make the most of what's in front of us.
So in other words, it's not a major departure of how risk has been handled and all the 10 different super cycle is what you're saying.
I don't think so. I think where AI is new is it's the relation of the tool with humans. So everything else is it's yet another technology. It's in fact a SaaS. So it's my data is going in and spending a few days of vacation in somebody else's environment. What does that mean? Do I know which data is migrating? What am I doing to protect that data? How am I tackling that? That's something we know how to do, right? What's new about AI is when Jean looks at his tablet and suddenly he's presented with information from an AI tool. If that AI is a visual interface or a voice interface, and that we're now unsure which one is human and which one is not, that dimension we've never tackled before. Impersonations, but to a point where humans are challenged and maybe it's impossible for humans to differentiate, that's a new dimension that we haven't tackled in the past.
And what do you see as the new risks that generative AI have introduced specifically?
Well, that one exactly. So where we used to do a lot of awareness and training and education and making people aware, it will only take us so far. At some point, humans, and we're at that point, humans can differentiate between a synthetic person or a real person on a call. We've had instances now that are published of people participating in a meeting where synthetic actors are around and the only real human is the one that's being defrauded. When that starts happening for real and millions of dollars are getting lost in a transaction, you know that you're facing something different. So we need to just take a step back and look at, okay, what can we do about this problem? If humans can differentiate, what are the tools at our disposal that we can put to this environment? And there are a number of tools. It's easy to say, well, we'll use AI and find a tool that detects the tool. That's one aspect. There are other tools. You could use regulatory frameworks. You could use collaborative ways. I mean, there are other methods of tackling the problem, but it's a problem.
Yeah, it seems to be like today AI is introducing a lot of new risks or existing risks that are bigger, higher velocity. I hear a lot of people say, well, AI is going to solve that. We'll use AI to monitor AI. That's an interesting thought.
We have to jump on it. I think it's true. And maybe the advantage will shift over to the blue team, to the good guys. If we manage to do this, hopefully. But at the end of the day, even if you do this, it's going to take a while because if you've played with AI models, but you can do adversarial AI models and see which one is going to win in the end. And both AIs are learning and getting better and stronger. Humans get lost in that battle. We have no chance. I've seen one in the past. Make a cat and differentiate between a real cat and a false cat in pictures. And both, quickly became so good at what they were doing at each other, the two AIs at each other. The human watching the match, no idea. It all looked like cats. They were all cats. So will AI be the tool to do this? Or, for instance, should we mandate that anything that's generated by LLMs or AIs has to have a watermark of some sort, or some sort of digital code that is detectable by a detection tool? Maybe it becomes a regulatory answer to a problem. I don't know yet.
What's your view on shadow AI? And obviously, every consumer nowadays has access to amazing top-shelf systems on their phone, on their computers. Obviously, that's going to breed an expectation at work, which, if tools are not there, people might use whatever they have, right?
Shadow IT, as you know so well, shadow IT has been a challenge forever.
Yeah.
This is
we just changed the letter.
This is a nicer, more attractive, more appealing tool, more difficult to resist, but it's the same problem. So if my organization's key players understand the risks of doing it, that it would be an AI or any other tool, shadow tool is a bad idea. It creates blind spots to the organization defense. So you need to tackle it. Now, do you tackle it only with detection and prevention, or do you tackle it by making people aware and accountable, and then making sure your team is part of your solution, team is part of your security team?
What would be sort of the top 3 pieces of advice to think about, tackle shadow AI, maybe for other CISOs listening?
For CISOs, get out there, talk to your business lines, talk to the people that are actually making your business successful. Make them aware that those decisions they make on the ground will have a direct impact or potential disastrous impact on the business that they want to grow. I think it starts there. You cannot, in a world that changes so fast. I often say at the bank that there are 31,000 participants in the security team. It has to become that. People on the ground, people in our branches, the local decisions. It is so tempting to just go on your phone and, buy a service for a few pennies or a few dollars a month. And that service now is perhaps looks like what you used to. Will I be able to deploy detection and protection across all our devices as fast as people can pivot and move around? That's the challenge of the day. And depending for a bank with larger means, perhaps that's achievable. For smaller organization or more nimble organizations, imagine the challenge.
I've heard from a lot of CISOs and different people in the industry that one of the best ways to tackle shadow AI is to make sure your organization is at the forefront with offering the latest and greatest. Do you share that opinion?
Actually, I do. And we took a very forward-leaning approach at the very beginning. We wanted people to be able to experiment. You want to enable that experimentation, that quick learning, so that you can take advantage of the actual tools as be an early adopter. But you have to do this with eyes wide open. You're back to training education for sure. Perhaps if you can afford and your technology allows it to have an area, a space a lab where they can actually experiment and do, or an environment where they can experiment. And if you don't, then you put more emphasis on enabling early some learnings. We found, at least that's our experience, we gave folks, allowed tools. People experimented a lot on that. And yes, there's still always a few rogue experimenters out there. But if they have what you're proposing, a platform where they can play and learn and get ahead of the curve, it's authorized. They know they're not going to get a headache. It's built-in security by design already. And you market it that way internally. I think that's a path to a better outcome.
A lot of large enterprises in various sectors are doing the sandbox pilots, and some have very good results in specific areas. And I think it's a good approach to try different use cases, see which ones we want to double down on. But when it's time to scale these pilots to large-scale enterprise deployment, often the data security is not mature, won't scale. There's lots of doubt when it comes to, okay, what sensitive data will be found in a prompt, in a file upload? What about agentic systems that have continuous unfettered access to a variety of data sources? What's your view on that seminal moment where, okay, this is a great use case, but now we need to scale this from 2 guys in a basement to 30,000 employee?
I'm a big fan of being pragmatic. There is no perfect world out there. As a CISO, I will not close the gates. Well, I guess I could have perfect security if we had no clients and no employees. That doesn't work so well. If you need to move quickly and adapt quickly, you will have to live with a healthy tension between what's allowed and what's available and what's just outside that line. It's preparing my team, my platform teams to be there. And in fact, internally, you have to look at your own business lines as clients. So we're enabling through platforms with built-in security and quality, and you are selling to your own business, consume these products because then you don't need to worry about security. There's a better return of investment right here. If you use other products, you might get early short-term wins, but eventually we will find you, we will lock you down, or we will force you back in this other environment, and that's going to cost you time, pains, and change in client experience. So adopt this one, and maybe that's going to cost you a few cycles of patience, and it will require us a few accelerated cycles of investments. But in the end, the business wins. But it's not going to be magic. It's going to be hard work.
You were making me think about something funny. The innovators that are trying to skirt controls are like, we will find a way. And you're saying, we will find you.
We will find you. Eventually, the funny thing about shadow anything, it finds it.
We will find you.
It finds, even if you're not looking for it, at some point it pops up. Either something unfortunate happens, or someone brings it up, glorifies, but somehow they always get discovered.
Yeah.
Not because you're looking for them. They show themselves up.
It's a risky business.
It's a risky business to be outside the business.
What would you say is the sort of top-down appetite and desire for AI in the banking sector? You could use the bank as an example, but how much pressure do you feel for AI adoption and the efficiencies that it could mean for the banking sector?
I don't know that I would call it pressure. I think that's such a huge opportunity for significant transformations that will bring higher quality, return of investment, quicker to market, customization for client experience. Like there's so many good use cases. It's not a top-down pressure. It's more of a holding back the generated appetite for getting there as fast as possible. So I think back to my providing a platform that provides by design the right elements for security and the right experience. It's more about holding back the business than pushing the business. It will be pressure on the platform teams. It will be pressure on everyone. But I don't think it's a pressure. I don't think it's a top-down pressure.
Maybe a better question to ask is there like a board down strategic imperative on the AI that's like driving top down? I'm sure there is, but is it more that these technologies are so powerful on their own that there's a groundswell of bottom up usage, and or both at the same time?
It's both. So of course, your board, all boards, they're concerned about, and you have the right strategy. Is a strategy pertinent, and are you executing on that strategy? So today, any board is probably asking, well, how is AI, part of our strategy, and do we have enough AI in our strategy, or is there too much AI in our strategy? So that's probably a board conversation for all serious big businesses out there. At the same time, you have your teams who just want to use and adopt it as fast as possible. So you're a little bit sandwiched between the two, because you want to control the upswell of interest, and you want to control that top down and feed the strategy with the right elements. And like everything in life, you have to make a compromise somewhere as to what makes sense. What's an investment? What's a potential expenditure that's not really an investment? Differentiate the two and give the best advice you can.
Talking about the board, can you explain when you present to the board about cyber risks, but in particular data security, data privacy, maybe AI governance, how do you go about that, and what type of updates do you provide? Do you have specific KPIs that you could share?
The usual conversations historically have been about data loss prevention, having a perimeter, a multidimensional perimeter, and those conversations are still ongoing. I think what's most important now, I think, well, at least what I prioritize, you have to know where your data is. That sounds so trivial, but data inventory, where it exists, in what form, is the very beginning of a conversation. And you and I have talked about data in unstructured environment, often a huge blind spot for many organizations. We spend a lot of time thinking about our structured data and the shaping of that. And that's a challenge on its own, because it needs to now migrate into tools that will add more value to that data. So that would keep people busy. But you need to look at the entire spectrum of data through its life cycle and make sure that data through life cycle is protected. And if not, that you can detect and react quickly.
Yeah, it's so interesting, because we were talking for many years, and when we started our business, we knew for a fact that unstructured data was the lifeblood of the everyday working man, right?
Yeah.
It's what people use, but very hard to track. And a lot of organization I've seen in the early days have tried to create data jails. Like, hey, we'll put all the data in a jail. But man, data wants to be free. It wants to roam around.
Absolutely. Data wants to rule the world. And you can't stop it. I don't think you can stop it. So you're going to harness it. You got to give it a place to live that you're comfortable with. But data will go. And the human in the loop will create those connectivities that you didn't really want to have, but they will happen, because people are people, and they want to create more value, create more business, and they'll, under pressure, will probably make decisions you wish they would make differently.
Switching gears and talking about AI use cases in cybersecurity, I hear a lot about, the autonomous SOC, and people have different visions for AI SOC analysts. Obviously, many tools are now including AI features that are making things easier from a filtering analysis perspective. What are the real AI use cases that you've seen are delivering a punch, an impact in the cybersecurity tool set?
I think you almost answered the question. AI is appearing in many of our usual tools. So far, the bigger benefit is there. A little bit here, a little bit there adds up to quite a bit. The low-hanging fruit is probably in triage and being more effective at finding those one-off events. I've always had a dream. That's going to sound a little bit like I'm still at the in the monitoring space, but if we could just have a good understanding of what normal looks like, normal behavior of individuals, normal behaviors of data, and keep an eye on it, and then you would probably see what's happening that's not normal, that's unusual. This was a too difficult problem with our historical tools. Perhaps with AI, it's something that we can tackle once again and have a look at what can we model, can we actually paint the picture what good looks like and find the outliers in that space. And that's likely possible now. It's a question of getting the data in a space where you can actually look at all your data and do something with it.
I've seen many dimensions where AI can be useful, like in tools, in our own tools. It could be that it's more dynamic. You can inject dynamism in a set of features where perhaps before, an interface was like drop-down menus, things like that. Now you can make it dynamic by having natural language queries, like, hey, I lost the laptop. Here's the MAC address. What can you tell me about it? I think that's very interesting. It makes it more dynamic to leverage existing data sets. I've seen it with speed also, like managing large volumes of data quicker, distill it into what's relevant.
Maybe even, Jean, closing the distance between your threat models, your risk models, and what you're monitoring, and having the tool, not you querying the tool, but the tool proposing to you, I think these models are appearing in this space in your organization, and put the human in reaction to the tool proposing. And as the tool learns, this is a false positive, this is real, this is false, the tool will keep on learning, assisted by humans. So again, this might be controversial, but human-assisted AI instead of the other way around.
And all of these are leading to, quote unquote, the agentic AI. Are you seeing real use cases now of like an actual agent querying multiple tools to affect the...
We're taking baby steps. It's not a space we fully master yet. I don't think anybody does. It certainly sounds like there's a lot of potential there. But at the same time, being a regulated body, we need to be mindful about the models, being the principles around what you're doing, being able to demonstrate that your decision making is repeatable and follows the due diligence principles. So for regulatory entities, maybe that's a little more tricky. If I had free reins, there's a lot of potential there. I would probably try to go faster and discover what I can do with it.
Because honestly, it's talked about a lot, but I haven't seen, besides the cool Medium article, the lab, the YouTube video, I haven't seen someone really do something large scale in that space.
It sounds like true automation and true autonomous automation. But then if it's autonomous, how is it making decision? Can you demonstrate, will it make the same decision over and over and over, given the exact same conditions?
Maybe that's a challenge for 2026 and your new role as CTO.
I will take that on.
Third-party risk. We had something very interesting happen to us this year at Coash where we use Google Workspace, and all of a sudden one day I woke up and it's like AI in the emails, AI everywhere to summarize email, to summarize your documents. No opt-in whatsoever, just appeared across the board. And there are many other examples of solutions that you bought as a SaaS off the shelf. And now, there's a magic update and we have LLMs all over. You don't know which models, you don't know where the inference is happening. A lot of hyperscalers don't even have hardware in Canada as it relates to our sovereignty. So you have to do a global inference zone and all that stuff's happening. I'd love to hear your view on that long chain of third-party risk now that's growing. And what do you feel generally about that? What should be done about it?
I'll answer maybe in two ways. So I think the third-party risk management was a challenge, is still a challenge. It's an amplified challenge. I think all of our businesses are untangling different portions of our business. And so we're going to become an ecosystem of smaller entities kind of highly connected together. That's fantastic. But it does amplify the third party or the third, fourth, five, fifth, seventh, eighth party risk management challenge. But as I was listening to the question and the way you're assembling it, I was thinking, Jean is making the case for we have a lack of regulations in certain areas of our ecosystem. The fact that I can wake up one day and someone has embedded tools, those tools, don't know anything about them. Should I be concerned about that? Probably. Normally you would announce to me your upcoming features. I would get a chance to ask you about those features. We would have a conversation about, do I want that feature? Don't I want that feature? Which is a little different from waking up one morning and finding Copilot looking at your email. Just to pick on one supplier, because you picked on Google, I picked.
But it's happening.
It's happening.
Totally happening.
Yes, absolutely. But these are unregulated suppliers, right? So will my regulator now ask me to show due diligence on my supplier and have more explainability perhaps in those tools? Maybe, but I'm going to need some levers if I'm to make it. Will contracting be enough to get the transparency that I need? Probably not. So I don't know. I think we're baby stepping to that right now.
Have you seen an evolution already of the contracts, different forms, where normally, say in a SaaS contract, you'd have to report your sub-processor, your partners, things like that. A whole new section on AI is going to be...
we're trying, but we're lagging. I think the whole industry is lagging. This is happening much faster than we can change our legal language.
It's almost like an Uber moment, let's just do it and we'll deal with it later.
Except I sit in a systemically important organization, so just do it doesn't quite...
No, I mean, those that are doing that, it's almost like they're adopting the Uber, the hell with what the government says or what could happen. Let's just do it because competitively we'll be the first, we'll be the best, right?
I think I know the analogy you're making, but would you rely on Uber to go to emergency if you got sick at home? There's which is my analogy for there's a regulatory requirement, a real pressing need. Maybe Uber is not the right model for what we need to get done. I don't know. Makes me a bit nervous. Yeah.
We were talking about the leadership and some of the qualities that you brought from your service in uniform, your service for the CST. I'd love to learn more about your style and when you pick your team, what are some of the attributes you're looking for in your lieutenants? What are some of the key cultural elements that you demand from that team?
Great question. Without getting too philosophical, there are many things we look for in as we build a team. Every team is different because you have to surround yourself and you have to know yourself a little bit. I have strengths and many weaknesses. So I have to complement myself to make sure myself, who I'm surrounded with, and my team amongst itself has the right portfolio of skills and strengths put together. The things that I really do value, I believe we work in technology, but everything we do is about humans. So I will certainly have a sharp focus on the person that's being considered in that person's own makeup, ethics, dynamics, style of leadership, experience, what have you. So the individual is very important for me. The technical skills, definitely you look at, but most important is the person and what you anticipate that person would do in a difficult moment, in a difficult problem. And then you have to look at the sum of your people and will they be able to gel together. There's a leadership role in that, but you have to put the right elements together. Of all the things I look at, the other thing I would point out is I value experience. I value people that don't have a linear career in one thing, but took the time to actually experiment and diversify themselves. I think diversification, taking your time to build yourself, build who you bring to the table, is immensely important. A little bit to go back to what you said, the fact that I spent time in different countries, that I worked in different alliances, or in country, outside country. I was an Air Force officer. You were an Army officer, flying things. Those cultures are important. The fact that you learn to work these cultures together, you're learning something as you're doing so within the military, between militaries, between military and government. And then you make that plural. When we work in the U.S., we faced different U.S. cultures, a country of 50 states, probably 50 cultures, blended together. So every one of these experiences enriches who you are as a leader, enriches who you are as a manager. I think that's a key component of the people you put around in your team.
And are there specific core values that you think are essential, especially in a high-performing cyber team? Accountability would be an example, but Are there others that maybe are part of your signature management system?
A strong sense of ethics and mission.
Okay.
A strong sense of ethics and mission. I think we're the good guys. I strongly believe we are the good guys. We're doing something noble for society in a fast-changing world. So that you do it in private sector or in public sector, that you do it in uniform, outside uniform. I think we're all in this together. We are transforming society at a pace that's never been experienced before. So for me, that's where the individuals on my team have tremendous ethics, tremendous sense of purpose and mission. And then, as you said, then accountable, good leaders, personable humans, all key components, but it's people first.
I really find that those leaders that put the mission first and everybody sees and believes that decisions they make are always in the best interest of getting the mission done, then they put their team second and themselves last, really in that, time-tested military leadership model. I really think that works well beyond the world of defense and security.
Absolutely.
And I've seen the best leaders always adhere to that simple approach with great results. You're kind of saying the same thing, right?
Absolutely same thing. And I'm really impressed to see it in private sector. When I first came to private sector, I was under that myth that in private sector, me, a dog, but it isn't that. There's a sense of cooperation. There's a culture. We have a very strong president with a very strong sense of mission, very strong vision for the organization, and everyone in the 31,000 employees are really well aligned behind that mission and vision. That is what we did in the military. That is what we did in government for the national security reasons, and that's what we do in a business, at least that I'm privileged to work in.
Now, I know you wouldn't change anything in your career, but if you had to give it some advice, maybe to someone that's new, starting in cyber, what would be the top 3 pieces of advice you'd give a young, switched on, motivated person?
Patience, curiosity, and trust yourself. I think that would be the first 3 that come to mind. Patience, because I find many of my conversations, people want to get to the finish line and they're focused on the finish line. And enjoy the journey. The journey is important. Be curious, goes with that, right? What should I do next? What's open? Is it interesting to you? Get passionate about it. I give this speech about being lazy. It's not about being lazy. It's about being lazy to do things you don't like. Be lazy in a way that you do things that wake you up in the morning that you want to do, and it'll get you there. So I think to me those things are super important. Yeah.
You just made me think about something. When I was a young pilot, one of my instructors said to me one day, Jean, there's only one way you're going to end as a burning hole in a mountain. You're either lazy, stupid, or arrogant. And I think if you stay away from these 3, you're going to be all right. Avoid problems. You'll be all right. Great. I mean, that's about all the time we have. And thank you for being on the podcast. If people want to follow you and your work, what's the best place to follow you, André?
Besides taking employment at National Bank, you mean?
Yeah, besides that.
Okay, all right. If you're not already an employee at National Bank, I do have a LinkedIn profile, so you're welcome to join me there. I'd be happy to connect with as many people as possible. We don't compete in security. We work together. So if you're interested in this domain, please, by all means, let's all connect.
Well said. All right. It was a great fun to have you. I learned a lot, and hopefully we'll do a version 2, maybe with a CTO angle in the future.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.